Hello and welcome to a new episode of our Tech Talk. If you like the show, then please give us a like. For sure, subscribe to the channel, click the bell button. This helps the algorithm on YouTube so that everyone can find DeFi chain and what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm very happy that we can have another episode to have a deeper look into technology, what's behind, what's developing. And I will directly jump to the main actors today. Welcome U-Zyn, Chi and Prasanna to this episode. I'm very happy that we can do it and I think you will show us great stuff like the last episode. I'm looking forward. I have no idea what you have prepared. U-Zyn, you will give us an overview and also introduce here the actors of today.
Hey everyone, thanks for hosting us, DC. Always great to be back. So today we have a new face, Chi, and we have Prasanna as well. So today we have an action-packed topic to cover. Today, hopefully we can cover all in about an hour. So firstly, we have Prasanna. He's gonna talk about the blockchain updates. I think we have DeFiChain has a couple of updates coming up. So Prasanna will cover the details on what's coming up there, what can we expect there. And Chi is a researcher and developer for cake and birthday research. So he's actually from he's done a lot of work on Ethereum space, very active in Ethereum space, really mingle with the big names on Ethereum space. So he's done a very good research on DeFi options, and that one, the idea about that is it's going to be a candidate for DeFi chain options that will then be adopted on a native chain. So I think the thing that she has done there is really amazing. I think it's not available out there on the DeFi space so far. So it's going to be very interesting when she's going to cover that. And it will end with me. So I'm going to talk briefly about updates on EVM and updates on further decentralization effort, and also a quick update on DeFi options as well, on what it means for the DeFi chain community. With that, let's start.
Okay, great. A lot of stuff. Then we switch the scene. Prasanna, I think you start. Right, I share your screen. Yep. So now everyone can see it.
Thanks, DZ. Nice back here. Okay, so I hear that this is actually going to be a pretty action-packed one with a lot of new stuff. So I'll just give a really quick overview on some of what we have in DeFi chain, the updates, the hard fork that's coming up. Cover a little bit, and then I know everybody's now excited about what Chi has to talk about, but I'll cover it briefly and then hand it over. Okay, so DeFi chain, what we have next coming up is Great World, which is V3. A lot of these stuff has been some of the things that we have already discussed before, but in general, V3 is something that has enormous amount of internal changes. Just put in some of the stuff from GitHub, but there's still a lot of PRs that are yet to be merged, and most of these are things that we'll actually see getting merged because we have an automated testing process which tests each and every single PR right now. So we are building all of that infrastructure as well. Meanwhile, so most of these will end up going in the next week. But meanwhile, people who have been following the code, I think, will kind of recognize where it was in before V3 and after V3 is going to be completely different. There's enormous amount of changes in there. So now coming to V3 itself, but these are stuff developers care about, but then at the end of the day for user, none of that matters, right? So, but what it translates to so far is, far better reliability and more testing, and then better maintenance going forward. Now coming to the key features, one of the things that has been most anticipated is stock split. We've talked about it quite a few times and what's coming up, but never went into detail. And now we actually have Amazon, which is going to split on June 3rd. So it becomes extremely important now to make sure that we actually have it on V3. So But long story short, from a very high level view, all the procedure is actually super simple. Like what's going to happen is once the hard fork kicks in, before the split, there's a mechanism called lock, which is going to be an attribute that will be set. All of these are things that can be controlled through on-chain governance. As we go forward, more and more of these will move into on-chain governance. We'll briefly touch that as well. But the main procedure on a particular token, Amazon here is token number 49. So we'll see that lock that's going in. When it's going to go in is something around plus or minus 12 hours before. So the pre-split lock is going to be set about 12 hours before the split actually happens. So sometime in June 2nd. And then once that is set, what happens is most of the subsystems will pause, and you will not be able to use any of the, let's say, DEX or walls, anything to do with that token during the point of the lock. Now, the lock is it's purely a safety mechanism at this point in time. Going forward, as we see, we can reduce the time of the locks. Again, it's on-chain adjustable, and even if possible, completely remove them as we gain confidence. And then the split height is the one that's going to determine when tokens are going to be split. And then it's going to be set similar to 49, which is the token ID, and then by 20. So Amazon, for every stock, you get 20 stocks. So that's basically the split. And this split, it's another attribute that's going to be set. And exactly on this height, a lot of things happen, which we'll just cover in a bit. And after that, post-split, again, after a few hours, the token lock sets itself to false, and then that's it. All systems are go. Procedure is going to be that's it. Like all these three things that you will see in the attributes, and then like that's it. That means that the split is set, and everything from this point on is going to be completely automatic. Now, going into how it actually works, right? So the moment a lock is set, every single subsystem, this includes the vault, this includes the DEX, everything is going to go into a pause for just that token. And now, what you can move them as usual throughout. There's going to be no block where you're going to be prevented from doing that. But you won't be able to interact with any other subsystem, which is all of them, which requires a price. Now, this is to protect us against some Oracle instability or anything during that point in time. And then what happens is, so this is essentially a sensible control mechanism. Right? It's an on-chain mechanism to address, let's say, there is an emergency stock split that's coming up later. So then, block is the one that you end up starting with first with an emergency defib, and then everything else can subsequently follow. So that's essentially the whole reasoning behind the lock system. And it also gives us a sanity measure to ensure that everything is all right during the initial stages and the initial rollout. Once the lock is set, now what time we're setting the lock is something that's, again, it's going to be on-chain controlled, and so it's adjustable. But by default, we're going to set it to around 12 hours before and 12 hours after, so that we get a good amount of time. But the 12 hours is something, ideally, the way that I think that it can be directed towards is that, this is my personal opinion, is that every single token split has to be taken in a unique way. Because let's say a split happens on a Friday night or a Friday evening. So then what that means is you could potentially have some oracles that are publishing old data or anything like that after 12 hours from now, because it's the weekend, let's say, nobody wants to deal with that. So these are things that can happen. But at the moment, all of the oracles are currently with the official Oracle adapters. Everything is automated, and they do handle a good chunk of sanity measures as well. So it's unlikely that will happen, but V4 is where we have more changes that are coming on for on-chain consensus as well. So until all of that happens, this is another safety measure that we have. So if we consider it as, like if it's Friday, then maybe we can extend it a little bit. So those are things that, I think it might be good to see it as every split as a separate mechanism, but everything is going to be automated at the end of the day, right? So it's not going to be extra effort beyond setting those whatever attributes that needs to be set, and then that's it. Chain will handle everything else. Now, coming to on the split block, this is where all of the magic happens, right? So on when that split block is actually hit, the old token gets renamed, automatically renamed to Amazon V1, and then the next time another split, V2, V3, and so forth. And then the new token, which is new, this is going to have a completely new token ID that's going to be created as with the same name as Amazon, AMZN, and then subsequently, what's going to happen, all in the same block, is same thing will happen to the pool as well. The old pool will get disabled, and new pool with the new token will get automatically created. And then every single subsystem will auto rebalance to use the new token, which means your pool, your liquidity, everything is going to translate itself automatically to the new pool that was created. And if you're holding any tokens, old tokens that you have will now instead be replaced by the new tokens. LP tokens, again, the same way. So all of this is in that single block. Everything just you don't have zero effort that anybody has to make, and everything just changed. And pretty much that's actually about it. Stock split happens on that block, and now you will have all of these new tokens, but you may not be able to use them because in order for you to use them, the unlock has to be set. Once the lock is released, whenever that is, then pretty much. So by default, again, after 12 hours, lock is released, and then you can go trade pretty much every single system that you've used. That's actually, all the complexities internal, I think, from a user perspective, try to make sure that it's as simple as possible. And hopefully this is, something that,
Prasanna, may I summarize from a user perspective? So if I have a look on the wallet, I will see the same pool because the name is the same, but I will have more tokens after the stock split. So you will remove in the background the old one, and I get more new ones. This is the split ratio, and then it looks like the old one. So there is perfectly no change for the user.
Exactly. So, however, there is going to be one change, which is going to be your token ID is going to be different. So if you've never looked at, if you don't know what your token ID is, if you've never looked at it, you don't even have to worry about it.
Every light wallet user, no change because you're not looking on the ID.
Yes. Absolutely, yes. The intent behind internally changing the token ID is, let's say if there are automated systems that are taking that doesn't take these into account, now they will not be able to do any harm in any way to themselves. Basically, it prevents somebody from shooting themselves in the foot. Because the old tokens will just, it'll become completely non-reactive after that point in time. You can't use it with any other system because there is no pool that is enabled with the old token. There's just nothing there to do with it. You won't be able to use that in a vault because everything that's already there gets auto-converted to the new one. And now all systems in that single block will update itself to use the new ones. And the old ones it's just sitting there. It's mostly historical accounting because even the tokens are gone, right? So when there's just no way for you to be able to use a new old token or think about, hey, what if I bring it back at a different point in time because everything just auto splits. So that's that's pretty much the gist of stock split. And then on-chain governance, I'll really quickly try to just go over the details are there in the pink paper, and it's been sitting there for quite a few months now. So hopefully people are already aware. But long story short, a couple of new RPCs are going to be there. The creation of that is, the change is going to be as non-disruptive as possible because today people use GitHub, everything is put in. And once this is introduced, the transition is going to be smooth and slow. So we didn't want to introduce another new learning curve for somebody else while all of this gets settled. So the way is, it's going to be very similar, except you're going to have one small process where you're going to use this create CFP and then put the title in there. And then eventually we're also looking at adding a hash for the content so that you know exactly what is that hashed content. So right now, the GitHub issue is going to remain exactly the same, and people can go look at the details of that. However, for voting, people will use the vote mechanism. And once voting is going to be, again, very simple RPC, vote yes or no. And so instead of you putting all of those hashes there on the GitHub issue, now you just do vote yes, no, and then that's it, pretty much done. So that's the key information, but hopefully, we'll go into more details of all of this later. But that I'll just cover that gist of it, and then so many smaller items. I won't go into details, but TX expiry we already talked about. Masternode update, operator address is something that change has been it's been requested for a very long time, but the context behind that is now it creates previously it's either custodial or it's something the masternode user has to have full control over it. These were really the only two mechanisms that was there. But today, you create this third scenario where people, service providers who don't want to take full custody, can actually utilize this. But what they can do is they can use the mid path to say, okay, I will be an operator, but then the user still controls everything. The user controls the wallet, the user controls the main key, user has the right to change the operator, user has the right to change the reward address. If that's not acceptable as a provider, then you move to the full custodial model where you completely run it. Right? Otherwise, user always. So the philosophy behind this is more decentralization and more ability, while keeping users having more control, but at the same time providing more for the operators to be able to do. And that's essentially the context of it. And then, decentralized token minting. That's something I think U-Zyn will cover the gist of why that's required, and then we can discuss that more in detail. Detailed stats and wallet auto backup is something that we're starting to do. And so these are smaller stuff, so I'm just going to actually skip over. And what's next? Timeline, early next week, we're going to expect a lot of these PRs are going to be merged, and then testnet as well next week. And about mid-May, plus we're looking at actual node release, and then hard fork is going to be targeting for the very 1st of June. Mm-hmm. All right, and sorry, I've been rushing through a lot of it, but yes, let's leave it to Chi. Yeah.
Then
thanks,
I have one question here in the chat regarding stock split. Maybe you can answer it regarding token ID.
Right. So with new token ID automatically being created, should users expect price listings on places like CoinGecko to be unreliable until CoinGecko references the new ID? So I don't know if they use ID as the mechanism. If they do use ID, yes, it will reflect the old ones, and the new ID has to change. Correct.
Okay.
I'll look into the details of it, but I don't know how CoinGecko currently references our mechanism. That's something to look into. It's a very good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I believe they're not using the actual numeric ID. I think they're using the symbol ID. I believe that's the case. So probably doesn't affect that, right?
Okay, if it is the ticker symbol, then we have no issue because they directly switch to the new one, and it should run through 3. But having a look would be great.
Correct. Yes.
Good. That was the only question related to your topic. Thanks, Prasanna. A lot of things are happening, and I like the solution of the stock split because it's feeling like a split on the on-chain. You really implemented a mechanism which splits the token. In the background a new token is created, but for the user it's a kind of split. You have more tokens than before after the split. Great. Cool. Then Chi is the next, right? So I switch to his screen. Then show us or tell us a little bit about options. I'm looking forward to it.
Sure, cool. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yep.
Awesome. So hi everyone. My name is Chi, and today we are going to talk about the other approach of decentralizing options. There are already a few out there in the market, and today we are going to take a different kind of approach to doing so. And let's see if I can go to the next slide. Yeah, okay. So for the benefit of everyone, I'm going to give a brief introduction of what options is. An option is basically a contract that gives the right to buy or sell an asset specified in the option contract So in a call option enables the buyer to buy an asset at a specified price, and conversely, put option enables the buyer to sell an option at a specified price. And a thing to note is that there is no need to exercise the option by the option buyer, especially it's not beneficial to do so. So for example, using ETH as example, let's say I bought a call option ETH that has a strike price of 3,500, and the market price now is 3,000. There is really no reason for me to exercise my option to purchase ETH at 3,500, because it'll be cheaper to purchase it from the market at $3,000. So yeah, again, to stress that options, there's no need for you to exercise it to purchase at a specific price. Yeah, and so you may ask, why options? So these are the three normally used cases for options. Number one is hedging. So say again, I'm using ETH as example. I own some ETH, and right now it's around $3,000. But I'm afraid that ETH might just drop to maybe to zero tomorrow. And to hedge that, to give myself some sort of protection, I buy for example, a put option to give me the right to sell ETH at maybe $2,500. So tomorrow, if ETH really drops to like way below 2,500, I'm able to exercise my option to sell ETH at $2,500. So this sort of give me like a loss protection and limit my loss of the asset. And yeah, this is a common thing that traders would do, for especially if they are afraid that the asset they are holding will just fluctuates too much and they don't like it. And the second use case of an option is to give the asset a more predictable price. And this is mainly used by companies. And one example that I have over here is airplane companies, and they want to buy oil at a fixed price because it's easier for them to do accounting, easier to for their cash flows. So they purchase call options so that they're able to predict how much they are going to spend for oil in the future, because oil price fluctuates, especially we know there's a war going on and stuff like that. And finally, one of the reasons why people use options is for leverage. So traders only need to pay a small premium for higher potential returns, because you don't have to purchase the entire asset. You just have to pay the premiums, and when it's beneficial for you, you exercise your options to purchase at a favorable price and whatnot. But this is definitely a bit risky, so always do your own research before using options to leverage on assets. And yeah, not financial advice. And moving on, so these are the two current option protocols in the DeFi space. We have Open and Hedging. So before I introduce our approach to options in DeFi, so I will go through a bit of a high-level overview for these two DeFi protocols. So Open essentially allows user to underwrite an option by creating a vote. So they have a vote, and then they deposit into the vote, and then they mint options in the form of O tokens. And the O tokens have a particular expiration date and strike price. So yeah, and the O tokens, they can then be sold in an open market. And then what people pay for the O tokens essentially act as a premium for the options. So one thing to note is that the O tokens are fungible for particular expiration and strike price. So they're all treated the same, and they can be traded among each other. So this is a visual representation of how it might look like in Open. So this is the vote, and then someone funds the vote by putting some funds in, and then the O tokens will get minted out, and O tokens will have a specified expiration and strike price. And notice I have like a couple of votes over here, and of different expirations and probably strike prices. And that also means that for each O tokens, they need to have a different vote to mint a different kind of O tokens. And as you can see, it sort of like fractionalizes the capital for operating a vote. And moving on, we have Hedging. Hedging is a slightly different option protocol because it's an American style option. So American style options are when you can only exercise it before the expiration date. And Hedging has a single pool of options that services a series of different expiration and strike prices. Now, I do have a star behind strike price because it depends if you're using it on the Ethereum chain or the Arbitrum optimistic rollup chain. Yeah, and in Ethereum, it's only in the money, so you can only buy options that are at the current price, and they have an oracle that will they will feed the current price into their smart contract. And Arbitrum, they have out of money and in the money options. But yeah, the main point is to highlight that they have a single pool, and a single pool is able to sort of mint different kind of option tokens for users. However, the options are non-fungible because for each tokens that mint, they do store this amount in the metadata, and this will be used for accounting purposes, so that in the case of when you want to exercise the option, they will rely on that metadata to sort of like calculate the profit, and yeah. And one thing about hedging is that the premium price is calculated via a variable controlled by the admin, meaning the admin has the sole authority to change that variable. And by changing that variable, we are essentially changing the premium price to be more expensive or cheaper. So yeah, it really depends on the admin's control. So we can sort of say that it's a sort of like centralized kind of thing. Right. So again, this is a visual representation of how hedging works. So again, I use the vote picture, but we can think of it as a pool. We have like every staker will just fund one pool, and the pool will be able to mint different kinds of options. So notice I use 3 different images because they're non-fungible to each other because they represent like different amounts, different strike price, and different expiry. And so I did mention different amounts. What do I mean? It means that, let's say I have 5 ETH options, and I would like to sell it to someone else who only like to buy 2 ETH of my 5 ETH option, and that will not be possible because there's no way for me to split my options into 2 out of 5 and to pass it on to him. Yeah, because it's being stored in one token, and the metadata it's not possible to change because of how smart contracts are written. So yeah, moving on. This is what we really want in our option protocol, is that we have an aggregated pool, something like hedging. A single pool services multiple kind of options, and we want our options to be tradable in the open market. In other words, we want options to be kind of fungible to each other, something like what Open is doing. And ultimately, we also want our premium price to be reflective of the market's demand. We do not want to centralize the premium price control too much like hedging, but we would like to pass that power on to the market to decide how much the premium should be charged. So yeah, so there's a bit of code over here which I will briefly go through. So this is the number one goal is to have a single pool. So so this is written in the Solidity, and this provide from function basically allows anyone to stake into the pool. So by passing in the amount and the minimum share of he or she expects to get out of it, so he or she is able to stake into the pool. So after all the logics that have snipped off over here, at the end, the stakers will be minted a trench. Trench is basically an accounting NFT that represents like how much you own, how much shares you own in the pool, and the state of your trench. So open basically means that the stake it's there in the pool and has not been redeemed yet. And finally, we have this block timestamp, which is useful because our option protocols has this sort of lockdown period for stakers. So in other words, it means that stakers will not be able to withdraw immediately after he or she has staked. So they need to wait for a certain time period before they are able to remove their stake, and that sort of gives liquidity protection to the pool, because we do not want people to exit the liquidity so suddenly and leaving no funds in the pool for people to buy the options. So that wouldn't be nice. And what's the benefit of stakers? So for the risk that they're undertaking, they're able to generate yields in the form of option premiums. So for each option that is being sold, a certain premium will be included in the pool, and depending on how much share the staker owns, that will determine the size of the premium that they're getting when they withdraw. And we will also cover additional rewards later in the end of the probably and towards the end of the presentation. But yeah, and the next thing that we really want.
Sorry, I jump in a little bit there, actually, just to add a bit context here on why it's being done this way and why there's a solidity code here. So, firstly, we had a pink paper last year that DeFiChain is gonna be adding options and futures. I think futures we have it right now with the D token, and the next thing that DeFiChain is developing would be options. So option, the things that DeFiChain has done so far is taking what's available out there, look at how good they are, and then try to solidify them into native DeFi and put it into a C++ code base, and it becomes a native DeFi. So for option, there has been two large protocols out there that Chi pointed out. They are not as exciting because they have been has been very limited use, and also it's not very flexible, and it doesn't come with usually what DeFi users like us like, because DeFi users like us, we like to yield mine, we like to participate in things that generate reward, and then in exchange for that, like it also provides some sort of an arbitrage opportunity for people to trade against any price inefficiency when you participate in those things. So with that, with those kind of like scope and those kind of goals that Chi is set out to look into ways for us to bring. So in a way, it's like an innovation from DeFiChain side that we're doing this to to basically make option in a more of like an AMM way, like automated market maker way, and it's fun for people to participate, and also there's a lot of opportunity for arbitrage, and basically just hopefully gets a lot more usage than what's out there today on the DeFi space, because it's more interactive. Just like when in the early days when DEX was started on, there's an order book, you have to put an order in, and you have to put a transaction to modify the order, and put an transaction to cancel your order. It wasn't fun. Like it was very, very badly used from the early days. And then as AMM came in for DEX, and it's completely changed everything because it's so simple to use, and there's yield mining, that's fun and all that. So we're trying to bring all this flavor into option, and therefore Chi is set out to do this research. And so what he's done here, it's a prototype that's built on Solidity on EVM. So we're going to talk about the plans for that, but for now, try to understand the goals on why he's out to do that and what he's done so far, and then briefly on my section, we're going to talk about how that ties in with DeFiChain eventually. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thank you for that. Yeah. So moving on. So there were three things that we set out that we want. So we just finished the single pool explanation of how we do it and what stakers can expect to have. So we are going to move on to the tradable options in the open market thing. So yeah. So like in hedging, we are not able to trade. It's not fungible, so it's difficult for us to. It's a difficult experience for us to trade the options among each other. And let's see. And yeah, so what we really want is that we want each option of a distinct expiration and a strike price to be fungible to each other. So example, option A has an expiration at 5th of May today at $3,000, and option B 5th of May also, but $3,001. So essentially they are different. So option A and B are not going to be treated equally. However, all options in option A will be treated equally, no matter the amount. They represent the same proportion of collateral, the same proportion of premium, and so you can easily offload half of your options to another user if you like. And how do we do that? We have this thing called the deploy ERC20 contract, whereby for a new type of expiration date and strike price, we'll deploy a new ERC20 contract. So for the more technical people, we are using a minimal proxy method because it's definitely more gas efficient to deploy a similar ERC contract over and over again. And once we have deployed, it will be then pushed into one of the mappings so that we will keep record of the address of a specified execution date and strike price. And this will be explained later of why I do that. And again, we also have a certain limitations, such as we only allow certain expiration date and strike price, because we do not want there to be too many variations of ERC20 options out there, and it's very hard to trade the market because everything has been fractionalized. So there could be only like 5 options of A and maybe 10 options of B. If we were to like allow an infinite amount of possibilities, there will be so many out there and very hard to keep track, and also very hard for everyone to access null and void the options, so which I will also talk about it later. So how do we do that? Again, this is a snip version of the sell option code. I do check that there's this UTC. Check for the UTC time. So only option that expires at 8 a.m. UTC every day is allowed to. I mean, you only able to sell options at 8 a.m. UTC every day. And again, this is subject to change. Right now, I'm just leaving at 8 a.m. UTC, meaning you cannot buy options that expires at 8:01 a.m. You can only buy at 8 a.m. every day, but it's every day, so it should be good enough. And secondly, we have this strike price position. It represents like how much the steps that we want in our price. So let's say if I set my position to be 10, I am only able to buy options of price maybe 3,000, 3,010, 3,020, and so on and so forth. But I cannot buy options of strike price 3,001 because that is not in the how can I say, the allowed position. So yeah, so these are the ways that we use to try to not fractionalize the option market too much. And for each option that is sold, we do have there's a percentage of collateral that's being locked, so that option buyers will always be guaranteed a profit payoff if there is a profit. And our option is also European style, and anyone is able to exercise anyone's option after the expiration date. And after a certain expiration threshold, anyone is able to null and void the entire option ERC20, and the locked collateral and the premiums will be returned back to the pool. Now, why do I want this? Because we want to encourage buyers, especially those who have a profit, to exercise their own options instead of having others to exercise for you. And it's also definitely more efficient to expire the entire the contract itself. And also, if at that point of time the option is not profitable, we don't want to encourage everyone to just wait out and hold the option until it becomes profitable and exercise again. That will create an unfair advantage for the option buyers. So after a certain time period, the threshold, that's what I call it. Probably we can set it a day or something. Probably the stakers will be encouraged or incentivized to just null and void the entire bunch of entire group of option ERC20, and then they will get all the premiums and collateral back. And whenever that is done, the profits that were supposed to be gained by the option buyers will also be null and void. Yeah, so that's sort of like a penalty. So you have to exercise your own options, because if I were to exercise for you, you will lose everything. Yeah, and yeah, this is the function of how we do it. So we have we call the fully unlocked function in the option ERC20, and then afterwards the unlocked amount and locked premium will be unlocked in the pool. And in the ERC20 side, this is the fully unlocked function, and this is a modifier that says that it can only be called after the expired threshold, and everything will be unlocked. Just a quick snippet of how it is written in the Solidity side for those who are interested. And finally, the automated option premium price calculation. We want a method to sort of track the demand of an option. So what it means is that the price of the premium will decay when more blocks have passed without any option purchase. Because if there are more blocks without option purchase that has passed, it signifies that the option is low in demand, and the premium price will become cheaper to reflect the low in demand, and basically encourage and spur option buyers to pounce on a good deal if they deem it is a good deal. And if they're like too many purchases in a small period of time, the premium price will increase because the demand has also increased, and yeah, that sort of work in the supply and demand kind of matter. So this is the simple formula. Basically, IV in this case doesn't really mean implied volatility. It's just a marker that I use to track the demand, and we can see the longer the blocks that has passed without an option purchase, it will decay exponentially. And at the end over here, although it's very small that you can't see, I do have like a limit of how low it can go, because ultimately I do not want the price to become zero. So people will get premium options for free. That is not a good thing for the stakers especially. So yeah, it's being clipped at a very low amount, and it's something that we can decide later on. And this is the price formula that uses IV and the expiration date to determine the premium price, and also the price difference of the strike price to the current price also affects how much the premium is going to be. So assume if we look into this graph at let's say the current price of this asset is at $300, and if we are setting our strike price to be below the current price, it'll be more expensive to purchase that option, because it's more advantageous for you to want to buy something that is cheaper in the future, considering that the price is like much higher now. So you have to pay a much higher premium. And conversely, if you were to buy the options of strike price that is greater than 300, the price will also becomes cheaper for you. And again, similar concept, this thing is clipped at a very minimum price, and it will not be zero. So yeah, basically that basically gives you a level overview, I would say, of the price calculation of premium. And finally, additional rewards. So what do I mean by additional rewards? So there are two ways to incentivize users I would say bootstrap stakers to participate in the option protocol. One is the staking rewards, whereby a fixed amount of reward will be awarded in each block, and the reward is split in proportion to the share of the staker. So the more you stake in, the more shares you own in one block, the higher proportion of reward token you will get. And the reward token is fixed. So let's say it's 1 ETH. I own 90% of the shares. I will get 90% of 1 ETH, which is 0.9 ETH. And yeah, that's basically how it works. And partial payout is pretty interesting, because for each block, a certain amount will be accumulated in what we call the accumulated pool. And in case of a profit by option buyers, a portion of the accumulated pool token from the pool will be used as payout. So in other words, the pool will not have to pay out 100% of profit. They only have to pay out a portion of it, and the other portion is being paid out by this accumulated pool. So thereby minimizing the risk to the stakers. And yeah, that probably sums up the my quick presentation. And we are also making our public report public really soon. So happy to accept any reviews, feedbacks, contributions by anyone. So yeah, I do not know if you have time for questions, but I'm happy to take them if they are available.
Great, thanks a lot. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And the obvious question would be when. When can we expect the feature having on DeFi chain or with DeFi? What do you plan?
Yeah, I'm gonna cover that. Shortly on my part. Yeah.
Okay. So we postpone a little bit the question to later to your part, and then we have a look. So pay attention. Cool. Yeah. Maybe one question, U-Zyn, to you. You mentioned the futures we have now live with the D token. Do we expect another future feature or futures feature on DeFi chain? Because I had in mind this, something different, like futures trading with supply and demand. Now we are settling at a price in future where we don't know. Yeah, it's the current price. And if we have a look on futures trading, the price is determined by the supply and demand. So for me, it's a little bit different. Maybe I'm wrong here, but I had something different in mind.
Yeah, I mean, um, the so what we had initially was, I mean, the original idea for the tokens or these stocks that we had order book futures, and
Mm.
then using that, allowing the community to create D tokens of that, and just from the evolution of DeFi chain, it turns out to be that it was done through a different mechanism, through a vault and using a DEX instead of using a order book future. So
Mhm.
and then we had, and I think we all treat it as. But in my opinion, I think what we had right now is more of an AMM based future where it kind of settles every week. So obviously that's 5% penalty or fee that you have to pay to utilize the future. But I think in a way it kind of acts as the future. We
Mhm.
can, I mean, DeFi chain, it's everyone's project. It doesn't end here. Like we can there could be potential to add like order book and all that, make it more of a traditional
Mm.
future rather than AMM future. Yeah, that could also be added, but I think for now, looking I think EVM is what's coming up that also allows a lot more innovation from the
Mhm.
community as well, from everyone, without having to modify the consensus, because that's always harder part.
Mhm.
So yeah, in short, there's no direct plan right now on the native side. The longer answer would be, yeah, we have EVM, and that will allow a lot more innovation with the tokens. There are a lot of things we can do with that. So looking forward to that. Yeah. Maybe something that graduates, something that's built on the EVM side that makes sense, and they can graduate into native DeFi and be added as a native DeFi.
Good.
Just like this approach on option, I think it makes
Yeah.
sense for C part or EVM part to be kind of like an experiment, to get feedback and see how the interaction is, to implement it, and once it matures, and then we solidify it
Mhm.
into native DeFi.
Yeah. Great. Thanks for the clarification that yeah, we have the same thing in mind. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the options trading because you can really use then the blockchain to do something new. Yeah. Then we switch to your topic because I see no other questions in the chat. And if you are not mentioning the when, I will remind you. Cool.
Okay, thanks. All right, yeah, I'm just gonna do a quick cover a few topics and also basically close up the tech talk as well. And if there's any Q&A, happy to take them. So yeah, I'm using. So for those who not know, yeah, so I kind of do the research on DeFi chain, on the things, on how to build, like the innovations and also the things that we progressing ahead. But I mean, it's a completely centralized project, so anyone could play my role. I'm just trying to bring it forward a little bit. So yeah, so the four topics I want to cover here briefly are first decentralization. I think there has been a lot more effort in decentralizing DeFi chain. I think that looking at even like the top 50 coins on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko, I think I made that tweet. I really think that DeFi chain, it's probably one of the most, like maybe even top 10 or top 20 most decentralized projects out there already in many metrics out there. Uh, yeah, so I really think that we're really getting super decentralized right now. Um, so I'm gonna cover that briefly before I jump forward. So the second thing is DeFi meta chain's progress. I think a lot of people here also want to hear about what's happening on the EVM side. What I think usually people, I mean, a lot of community is always spending when people briefly about that. And DefiChain-Bridge from Dr. Dana Kagara. That's super exciting. Gonna cover that also briefly. Not my innovation, but interesting topic as well to cover briefly. And lastly, DeFi options. So we're gonna talk about what to do with the research or with the prototype that she has built. So So firstly, decentralization. So there's this DFIP that was put in to further decentralize the consensus code ownership. So I just want to briefly cover that. I made some tweets on that, and generally, I think the committee has been super happy. But I just want to make it clear that this committee is all about make sure that consensus adheres to what the masternodes vote for on the voter confidence and on DFIP. So the pull request, the merges, and all that. Just basically, this committee will have the ultimate right to say, okay, this doesn't fit the direction of DeFi chain, and it should be blocked. Also, want to make it clear that this committee will not be the only one that's merging code, because it would just be too much work if we you can get if it's only just 4 person there. But I mean, there's enough safety and there's enough review as well on the code side to make sure that they are safe and they are also sufficiently centralized. But this committee is set up to make sure that there's no consensus that are made out of DeFi chain code that doesn't adhere to the general direction, general consensus of what DeFi chain community or masternodes want to. Just want to make sure that those two are aligned. I hope that's clear. And the next thing I want to briefly talk about is crypto tokens. So we have DBTC, DETH, DUSD, DUSDC, and all that tokens. So we have these on DefiChain today, and I think they form a pretty core on and off ramps into DeFi chain. Obviously, the decentralized chains are also form pretty good on and off ramp as well into DeFi chain. The question is, can we take this token further into decentralization? Because I mean, they are backed tokens, so you have addresses that you can check that they are backed on the actual Bitcoin chain or Ethereum chain. But can we take this further decentralized? So this is what is being worked on. So the Crypto Consortium, this is like a working name. The name is not final or whatever. So the goal is clear. The goal is we want to take further decentralized on the token. So the approach is going to be very, very similar to USDC, where these tokens are collectively managed by a group of trusted parties. So they get the right to mint and burn tokens. But obviously, when these parties mint and burn, they have to then back, right? So there will be a transparency dashboard that tracks the individual parties that participate in this consortium on how much they mint, how much they burn, how much they back, and that's all to make sure they're over minting. Obviously, disease dashboard is also tracking that really, really well already today. But with this consortium, it's going to be multiple parties is doing that. And the key thing is they're all sharing the same token, so it will not be like a Bitcoin from party A, Bitcoin from party B. It will be the same token, because that allows a lot more interaction and a lot more seamless on and off ramp into DeFi chain coming from various ramps that we have there. So on the technical side, Prasanna briefly covered that. So it's being developed to support this feature. On how it's going to really happen, on how this consortium will really turn out, it's still being worked on. So there's some legal thing in there to make sure that like the party onboarded has to be highly trusted, and there has to be some stake, may not be monetary, but some stake involved, that if someone misbehaves, you have to it's very, very highly trusted, because we're talking about decentralized project here. So obviously we want to be decentralized, at the same time we want to make sure that participants in this are held to a very high standard, both responsibility and also legally as well. So this direction that's taking, all for the name of decentralizing DeFi chain. I think we're getting probably really close now to even more decentralization. Yep. So the next thing is DeFi mainnet chain. So DeFi mainnet chain, the EVM approach into EVM support on DeFi chain. So we're gonna take a first step into DMC. I just want to basically paint a picture with everyone here on what it looks like on the first iteration of DMC. It's a continuous piece, so it's not like once the release is done. On the first step, to make it out there, to make it quick, to make it workable and safe. So you can expect is that there will be a node that will run the native chain and also the DMC chain. So every single node on DeFi chain will contain full visibility on these two chains. Basically, you can think about it as one chain. They're not two separate chains because they are tied with one another. Yeah. And the consensus is that native DeFi chain, it's where there's a core consensus happening. So we're sticking, native DeFi chain is currently using POS plus W, so a proof of stake that's modified from Bitcoin's proof of work. So that's continue to be how native DeFi chain functions. There's no change on that. Native meta chain, so there has to be a consensus of how the block can move forward on native on meta chain. So the way that works is basically every block on native DeFi chain will allow the miner to also create a block on meta chain, so that allows a one-to-one block at the same time on both chains. So the time of both chains will be exactly similar. So so there will be no block rewards on DMC. If you mine a block there, the only thing that you get is transaction fees on DMC side. So all the rewards stay on native side. Yeah, there's a lot of benefit by doing this. Obviously, it's speed. Obviously, also that it's a lot more straightforward on this approach. And I think the key thing is on coin and token interoperability, because by doing this, the metadata on both chains can carry across the net amount of tokens and DFI that goes across both chains. So like on the meta side to go across the native side, how much is being transferred, how much is being destroyed over here, how much is being released over here, and how much, when you go across to the other side, how much is being locked up here, how much is being created over here. It's basically a bridge, but a bridge without a without trusted party. So every single node gets full visibility of that bridge, and every single node gets to validate 100% on all the nodes that are all tokens that are on nodes that are crossing across the chain. So it's fully trustless. So there doesn't need to be any party that's managing those bridge. It's just very seamless. And the token that cross over to the DMC side basically acts as a ERC20 token. It's not strictly Ethereum, but it's in the same standard because it's not on Ethereum blockchain. So ERC20 is not the right term here, but you know what I mean, right? It's basically the same interface for token. So which means that if you cross over, you can write all the smart contracts, you can port all the smart contracts on Ethereum side, on BSC side, on AVAX, Ethereum, AVAX EVM chain over to DeFi chain. You can run all of that on DeFi chain, and I think this will open up a lot more innovation. And the thing about this is it's very clear on how this can happen. It also allows us the first step into releasing the first node into DMC. So when as previously communicated, so Q3 2022, it's kind of like where the engineering team is now looking at for the mainnet first rollout. There will be testnet, there will be testnets before that to make sure it's all safe and all that. By the first version, it's fully self-sufficient to support smart contracts. So we can look at NFTs, dApps, and all that already happening on DMC from the first block that's being created on the DMC side. And DMC will continue to get upgrades over time, along with native side as well. Get upgrades over time. The thing about the upgrades is that the goal for us is to get to a stage where there's no need to be for any further hard forks to happen for any upgrades. But before we get there, the upgrades might still require some hard forks along the way. But once you get fully there, in person, I'll probably share on the next Tech Talk on the WASM initiative on the native side on how we can make sure that the native even upgrades do not need do not need any like downtime on the upgrade. So it makes exchanges and all that a lot more easier, and community also a lot easier. And basically just to voting for consensus changes, and that gets pulled into, that gets accepted as consensus code. So before we get there, you may have to expect some traditional upgrades like what we're doing today, but you can see from the past few upgrades, it has been pretty safe, pretty good. So thanks for the great team, especially for Sanas, just leading that, making sure that everything's really safe. Yeah. So DefiChain-Bridge.com. So this is Dr. Dana Kagara's bridge. Is live now, allowing you to go from DFI from native side into BSC, into DFI token on BSC. And there has been, I think, as far as I know, two pools that are supporting the token. So there's this XC pool, there's DFI and BNB, and there's also the PancakeSwap. There's also DFI and BNB. There are quite active trades going around. You can, if you check the token smart contracts on BSC scan, you can see that there are people using it every couple of minutes, like 2 to 3 minutes. There's always a token transfer. So really active to use. So even just a few days of launch. So yeah, very interesting there. So I'm getting back a bit on DeFi options on what she presented just now. So what she presented was, I think this is the approach that we always want to do when we start DeFi chain. It's all about taking what's mature out there, what's proven out there, solidify it into native DeFi and put it into DeFi chain. So on option, what she has done here, it's something that's new. It's a research that's being done. It's a prototype that's being built. So if you do it directly on native DeFi, it can get tricky when you need to upgrade because you have to then do a hard fork and all that. So it makes sense to be built on Solidity and then roll it out on a BSC, on EVM blockchain to allow community to try out. And now that we have the bridge, it actually allows us a lot easier to deploy that on BSC. So now, on top of those two pools that we've seen, there's another reason why this bridge is going to be so handy, because it allows community to go across. You have native DeFi, you can go across to the BSC side, assuming that contract's going to be deployed over on BSC. The idea is to have a trial run on BSC for, let's say, 2 to 3 months for us to get feedback and for us to improve as well on like any issues with the options smart contracts, also to build interfaces and to build see interactions around it. And there will be liquidity mining earning DFI in the form of BP20. So if you participate in this DeFi options pool, you will get some DFI from mining and also from the premiums that's being paid. And in order for you to, you can use the bridge to then go back into the native side for you to do the usual native stuff. So you want to join the smart contract, you're going to use that bridge to go into the BSC side. So I think it's a great, it serves two purposes. One is it helps create a use case. I mean, a very strong use case for the bridge as well, for a reason to go across, because there's a liquidity mining involved on the options pool. And secondly, it also helps to test and the prototype that's been built on DeFi options over there. So on the DeFi reward, Cake will initially sponsor for about 3 months of reward there, just to kickstart also for us to get some like see the use pattern and also get feedback on safety and all that. But that's only for 3 months, and then eventually, once you get ported back into native DeFi side, there's already DFI that's being allocated for liquidity mining on options. So yeah, we can just use that for that. So yeah, so that's the idea about DeFi chain options. In terms of when, I need to so we're gonna deploy on BSC. Depends on when she's ready. I think it's just a matter of probably days or a week or two, and then we'll also have a chat as well with Dr. Dino Kagara to see if his bridge can also support the token. If that works, then it'll be really great because we can also bring DUSD and D token as well over to BSC side. That will make the option even more interesting, because not only trading against DFI against, let's say, BNB, it's all about, you can even trade like D token options, which is very it's gonna be very interesting. So if the bridge supports D token, then we can do that. If not, then we're probably gonna have to deal with that BSC USDT on BSC or USDC on BSC. We have to use the existing token on the BSC side for that. So it depends on how that looks. So we still have to talk with the various parties involved, but you can see that's all part of the decentralized project. You have to talk to various parties, you have to see how you can collaborate and then bring projects to fruition. So yeah, I hope that gives everyone an idea about when we can expect this. Yep. And yeah, I'm going to end with this. Like, continue building that stairs. We are doing very well against Bitcoin. Yep. Yep. That's the end. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thanks, U-Zyn. So it's a little bit more clear, and you directly answered one of my questions. I'm jumping back to this scene regarding which tokens can be traded on BSC side with options. I think if Dr. Daniel Kagara can implement D tokens, would be amazing. Yeah, that's the purpose here. We want to trade any assets, and but we have to check. I understood, and have to wait. There was another question regarding the DeFi meta chain. Maybe you can answer it. What are the biggest risks of DMC parallelism to native DeFi chain? I think that's a little bit kind of uncertainty in the community. If we are talking about EVM, is it related to the native DeFi? Do we have risk additional with the EMB? Maybe you can clarify it again a little bit.
Sure. So the way that it's being done over here is actually make it super, super safe. So it when you go across to the DMC side, the DFI or D token on native side has to be locked up in a smart contract or in an address that's not accessible, and then the tokens that's being recreated over here. So assuming this mechanism is safe, obviously there could be bug, but assuming this is safe, then everything else is happening on DMC side will not allow you to create more token, because it's not possible on EVM side. It's fully tested. You can't create token out of thin air on DMC side. If you create a new one, then it's not the same one for you to redeem. So on the existing one, you can only be created from this mechanism. And for this bridge is completely trustless. There's no trusted party to create it on this side. There's no trusted party to unlock it on the other side, because every single node gets full visibility on both chains, and every single node gets to validate on both chains. So it's basically functioning as one chain. If you think about it, it's literally one chain on that side, plus a Web3 compatibility on the EVM side allows us to do a lot more things there. So there's no risk of the EVM side being able to create new tokens or being able to corrupt the DeFi chain side. It's very safe and very decentralized.
Cool. And another one I also read in the past in the chats, if we don't why do we don't list a DBNB token on our DeFi chain with the bridge? I think here the arbitrage traders want this trading pass on our side, so you can trade it in the loop.
Yeah, maybe we should have a DFIP there. Yeah, interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Maybe we should have a DFIP on that one. Yeah.
Cool. So Christian, make a DFIP for the next voting round. So the current one is too late, but the next one will come, and then we can vote on it. Cool. That's all from the chat. No further questions. We are a little bit over 1 hour, but a lot of things to talk about. So I think the time was very good to present the stuff. Thanks a lot for joining, you all of us. I think this helps the community to get a feeling what's happening. Yeah, for sure, everyone sees the D tokens today, the DEX, liquidity mining, but more is coming and giving us a feedback and an update what's happening. I like the show. That's also why I'm hosting it. And for sure, I cannot understand code in this detail, but to get a feeling, what's happening, what are the next steps, is really great. Thanks for the presentations. And then I would say thanks for all of you viewing it live. I think the most one will having a look on the Tech Talk later on. And I would say we see you soon. Next time in about 6 weeks. Next Tech Talk is planned. And maybe then, we see options trading on Binance Smart Chain. I'm looking forward to it. See you soon. Bye together.
Thanks
for having me.
Bye-bye.